The end of the world is something we both fear occurring, but also an idea that we relish in. In 1552, an anonymous author from Augsburg in Germany wrote down his fears of the end time. Known to us today as the Book of Miracles, it takes pages out of the work of artists like Hieronymus Bosch and creates a picture book of the end times, with bizarre, surreal, and horrifying depictions of omens and signs that prelude the apocalypse. The images produce the same fears people have today of the unknown or even monsters. Today, we're going to take a look at this book, some of the history behind it, and look into the bizarre signs that will prelude our own doom. While the name of this book is the Book of Miracles, the depictions are far from wonderful. Ominous omens and disturbed visions fill every page of this book, just like in 1461, where the sky rained flesh and blood, or the emergence of bearded grapes in 1547. Now, unless I'm just not traveled enough, these are all things that don't happen on a regular basis. Each page depicts the year a miracle happened, a drawing of it, and then also on the bottom a little text blurb of what happened. But why would someone write and draw this book? It's really simple. Things are wrong in the world, and you need to repent and prepare for the end times, which of course is soon. This book just displays the author's fears of the apocalypse being nigh, and could help explain why comets are a common sight in this book. Comets, throughout human history, have been a sign of bad omens and messages from God. For instance, the Bayeux Tapestry, which records the transit of Halley's Comet in 1066, this comet is also seen as an omen for the invasion of William the Conqueror later on that year. The book's origins, too, are just as interesting as its contents, appearing out of effectively nowhere in a German auction house in 2007. The 455-year journey remains effectively unknown, and its author is surrounded in mystery, too. Drawings in the book have some basis upon the workshop of printmaker Hans Berkmer the Younger. This lends to some credence that he could be the author, but the information we have is at best a possibility, and the author remains unknown. Given the nature of this book, being a mysterious, unknown book filled with bizarre and surrealist art, it gives off a similar aura and feeling that the Voynich manuscript has. However, this book was written during a period of great upheaval, as the Middle Ages came to a fiery end. The early modern period would come out of the ashes. Religious conflict spilled throughout Europe as Western Christianity split between the various branches of Protestantism and Catholicism. This period is known to us now as the Reformation, and it's no wonder that fears of the end times reach an all-time high. In all honesty, that's probably why the book was written. To keep track of God's omens, to help track all of the signs that the apocalypse could be soon. But we've discussed enough of this book's history. Let's just open it up and take a look now, shall we? The first section of this book is effectively just a retelling of biblical events from the Old Testament, depicting scenes such as the Great Flood or Moses parting the Red Sea. The Old Testament scenes also include the vision of Ezekiel, one of the more stranger and surreal parts of the Bible. It's a glimpse into the throne of God, and what we see is barely comprehensible. Accompanying God are two figures. To his left, a cherub, a winged angel, the head of a man, an ox, an eagle, and a lion. To his right, the Ophanim, better known as the heckin' biblically accurate angels? After the recap of the scenes of the Bible, we head into a history of God's omens throughout history. At least up until the modern day of 1552. Many of the omens we see are just classic omen shticks. Locust plagues, volcanoes, comets, so on and so forth. If you went to the store and got the store brand apocalypse, these three things, they would definitely be in that box. The standard apocalyptic images are soon met with more bizarre depictions, such as three suns existing in 1173, dragons flying around in 1533, or when in 1550, blood bubbled out of the ground. Multiple suns existing also became a theme, such as in 1551, when the sun multiplied into 5, or whenever the sun gets a bright ring over it. However, as odd as these omens sound, they're all based in reality. While they weren't aware of it at the time, what they were seeing is just known as a sundog today, which basically is caused by ice crystals floating in the air being suspended by clouds. But those sundogs are more or less some of the only omens in the book with a logical explanation. Like in 1541, a man with a fiery sword fought a band of warriors in the clouds over Poland. Or another man in 1531 appeared with his ghostly horse to ride across the sky in Bohemia. Well, of course, it's highly unlikely that these events actually happened. We also weren't there, so who's to say the 1536 Battle of Giant Babies in the Sky never happened? But if you take a look at the shields of the babies, one is Habsburg Austrian and the other two are Ottomans. So sadly, it's more like it's just referencing the Siege of Vienna, which occurred in 1529. But one can hope the baby battle actually happened. But besides all the events unfolding in the sky, monsters also roamed the earth. From the strange fellow in 1543 to this other strange fellow from 1531. Monsters were another major focus of the omens of the apocalypse. While many of these strange beasts have no real explanation to them, just kinda odd, strange-looking fellows, one does. This depiction from 1496 of a monster being dredged from the Tiber River might actually just be a misunderstanding of a Protestant caricature of the Pope called the Papal Ass of Rome by Lucas Cranach the Elder. The author of this book seems to take it as a literal event, or he's just winking to the audience, giving them a reference they would probably know, but would possibly fly over the heads of others that didn't. The horror that people have with these types of beasts is something that is just innate with humanity. Through our history, abominations like these have been seen as horrifying, and it still stands today, although now people would describe it as uncanny or liminal analog horror. Ugh. At the same time, while these abominations are viewed with horror, they're also revered as divine. Are the cherub and Ophrium, seen earlier in the book, no different than the gray beast we saw earlier? It's just an interesting dichotomy, really. The book ends where it started, with the Bible. More specifically, where the author goes into the visions of the Book of Revelations. The apocalypse, as depicted by Revelations, is a horror show. Trumpets, dragons eating men, seals being opened, death, and just destruction. The whole 9 yards of apocalypses. No rapture, however, because that may or may not have been invented in the 1830s, depending on who you ask. The last image in this book, however, depicts the arrival of this beast, the multi-headed monster with crowns adorning each of its many heads. Next to the beast is a white animal. This is the Antichrist. On their knees in front of the beast and Antichrist is a plethora of men dressed in Catholic attire. Bishops, cardinals, even the Pope kneel before the beast. This at least confirms that the author of the book was most likely a Protestant, with his anti-Catholic depictions. But with that foreboding image, the book comes to a close. With that, we reach the end of the Book of Miracles. This surreal piece of Renaissance artwork displays the fears of a society during an extremely tumultuous period. Each page has a strange and ominous depiction of doom and devastation, with some of the drawings having explanations thanks to modern advancements in the natural sciences. Others, however, defy all expectations. Others, however, defy all explanations. But there's one overarching explanation that can be found within the book. The book is consumed in and created by fear. And that fear is painted over every picture. Fear of the unknown, of monsters, and of divine punishment.